What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Financial Freedom Show with Lawson. For those who this is your first episode you're listening to, I am a personal finance enthusiast and the author of the best-selling book, Financial Freedom, Breaking the Chains to Independence and Creating Massive Wealth. On today's episode, I wanted to discuss how to go about budgeting. So first and foremost, what even is a budget? A budget is simply an estimate of expenses and income over a specified period and is a tool used to meet one's financial objectives. Many people balk at the idea of budgeting, but without it, you essentially are in the dark when it comes to your own finances. I know looking at and talking about money isn't always the most fun thing in the world, and I know a lot of people are hesitant to do so. It's kind of like when you were in school and people didn't want to see their grade. Their mindset is, if you don't see it, you can't be hurt by it. And so a lot of people don't really ever check their bank balance because every time they see it, it either isn't growing or it's dropping. However, you will eventually see it and you cannot go back and change the past. If your financial picture is not where you want it to be today, there's really only one way to fix it moving forward, and that is by reviewing your current situation, analyzing it, and taking steps to improve it moving forward. And if you don't use a tool like a budget, you're really taking a stab in the dark and are not best preparing yourself to improve your situation. It may not be fun, but it's very helpful, and so I wanted to use this time to discuss how to create a budget and then how to use it to make good financial decisions moving forward. And the great thing about a budget is that the hardest part is actually building it and getting used to the process. But once you have a template built and understand what goes into it, it won't take you long to be a master budgeter. So a budget does not tell you not to spend money. Rather, it gives you permission to spend money the right way and is a plan for what to do with the money that you do have coming in and going out. It gives you control on where your money goes and gives your money a purpose. It allows you to see if you're spending more than you're making and to adjust so you stop overspending. You can make a change as long as you know where to start. So how do you create a budget? A budget at its core is just a breakdown of your income or money coming in and your expenses or money going out. It doesn't have to be super fancy and complicated. You can quickly scratch it out on a sheet of notebook paper or use Excel to help. I also have a helpful template you can use in my book if you have a copy that you can reference as well. But just get to work and make it your own. So first things first, you'll want to access all of your accounts, including bank accounts, credit card statements, and your paychecks. For many people, their income is level and doesn't change from month to month. If this is you, take a look at your most recent paycheck and look for the amount listed as net pay or take-home pay. This is the amount of money that hits your bank account each paycheck after taxes and other deductions are removed. The reason you want to use this number as opposed to your gross pay is because this is the amount you have left to spend after other deductions are removed, and because most of the deductions like taxes and Social Security are outside of your control. If you're paid more than once per month, you'll want to convert this to a monthly figure. To do so, multiply the amount by 2 if you're paid twice a month, 2.167 if you're paid every 2 weeks, and 4.33 if you're paid every week. Now, if your income is variable and changes from paycheck to paycheck, or if you get periodic bonuses or commissions, you can either take an average if those additional income amounts are more frequent or predictable, or use your standard or lowest paycheck amount if they're less frequent or if there's more uncertainty to the bonuses or commission or variable pay. If you err on the lower side, that will allow you to be more conservative with your spending, and then when you do get a bigger paycheck, it's essentially a cherry on top that you can have more fun with as opposed to building it into your budget and having a shortfall when it's not there. Next, determine your monthly expenses. There are two types of expenses, fixed and variable. Fixed expenses are those that the amount stays constant from month to month. This includes things like your rent or mortgage payment, your cable bill, insurance payments, etc. Variable expenses are ones that change each month. This includes things like your electricity bill, gas, groceries, etc. Go through your past few months of bank and credit card statements and list out all of your expenses by month and try to get an average of what you spend on a monthly basis. Your fixed expenses will stay stable, but for any variable expenses, try to get an average monthly amount to account for a typical month. Once you have this figured out, then take a moment to add up all of those monthly expenses and subtract it from your monthly income. This will give you a baseline of where you currently stand. On an average month, are you spending more than you bring in? Or do you want to find ways to spend less so you can save or invest more? A budget will help you make sense of the noise and take strategies to improve your financial position. There are essentially three main types of budgets. I will break down each one and then let you know which one I prefer and why. The first type of budget is a 50-30-20 budget. This budgeting method sets all monthly spending and saving into three categories. Your needs account for 50%, your wants account for 30%, and the final 20% is for savings. This method is really simple to follow. You don't need a million different expense lines. You take your monthly income and half goes to what you need to stay afloat, like food, shelter, and water. 20% goes straight to your savings or investments, and the final 30% you can use for anything you want. You have full reign over this money. The issue with this method is that only 20% goes to savings, retirements, and overpayment on debt. If you're paying off debt, the minimum payment would be part of the 50% needs category, but any excess will have to come out of your savings. This leads to slow progress on your money goals and could extend your debt beyond what you actually may be comfortable paying off. However, many people only try to save 10% of their paycheck, so this could lead to more savings in theory for some. Another budgeting method is the envelope method. This dates back a long time to when people used to typically pay their bills in cash. With this method, people would put cash in different envelopes earmarked for different expenses, and then as an expense would come up, they would take cash out of the envelope to pay that expense. When they would run out of cash in that envelope, they'd have to wait for the next month before they could spend more in that category once they've replenished their envelope. And at the end of the month, you can see how much cash is left by taking a quick peek in your envelopes. It is conceivable that people would carry 15 to 20 cash-bearing envelopes on them at a time. While this system has developed over the years, the concept remains the same. This method can be good for people who typically go overboard in a certain category like food, as it keeps them disciplined to only spending a set amount that month on that category. For this method, you'll want to determine which budget categories need a cash envelope, figure out how much you want to allocate to that category each month, then fill cash envelopes for each category, and then finally spend only what you've put in each envelope. If you run out of money in a category, like I said, you'll have to wait. You may have to raid your fridge for leftovers or keep from eating out a time or two. This method is great in that it can help keep you on track, forces discipline, holds you accountable, and makes it harder to overspend. However, there are disadvantages. One big one is that a lot of people today don't want to carry cash. Cash is easier to lose. It can be scary walking around with it, especially in a big city, and it can be harder to keep track of since there isn't an audit trail aside from what you write down yourself. In addition, carrying cash doesn't allow you to cash in on credit card rewards. Further, with cash, you owe the money right then and there, as opposed to getting a delay on paying it off with the credit card. However, many people do struggle with credit cards, and credit cards can lead to spending more, so this helps prevent that and helps you only spend money that you do have. The third and final budget method I wanted to discuss is the zero-based budget. This is what I use and what I personally would recommend to most people. With a zero-based budget, every dollar has a purpose or a job. So each month, your income will equal your expenses with this method. That way, every dollar has a clear and defined job. You can make this as high level or as detailed and nitty-gritty as you want. But essentially, at the end of the day, make sure every dollar has a purpose, including savings and investments. For example, if your monthly net income was $4,000, you might have $1,200 go to rent and utilities, $300 go to your car loan, $200 to your student loans, $100 to other debt, $250 to insurance, $400 to food and groceries, $50 to gas, $400 to church, $100 to your cell phone bill, $100 to clothing, $100 to gifts, $200 to emergency fund, $200 to your fund, and the remaining $400 to savings and investments. This leaves $0 remaining. Every dollar that comes in has a purpose, and you still allow for savings, investments, and building an emergency fund. Make sure, regardless of budget method, that you do set aside money to pay yourself and to build up your savings. That way, even with the zero-based budget, your net worth does continue to grow and you can comfortably reach retirement with a nest egg to fall back on. The reason I like the zero-based budget and the reason I recommend it, especially to people just getting started budgeting, is because it doesn't allow you to accidentally spend more money. Your money does not disappear. Your money works for you, and every dollar has a purpose, which then you just need to stay disciplined to that. This method can be more restrictive than others, but will help you ensure that you meet your financial goals. So now that you know what a budget is, how do you then use your budget effectively? Well, one thing that is important to highlight is that your budget will constantly change as you progress in life. So while your budget may be effective today, your situation will only change, especially as you progress in your career, start earning more, paying off your debts, move, get married, have kids, and more. As such, it's important to not just create a budget one time and then forget about it. Rather, your budget should constantly be evolving. Schedule at least annual, if not monthly, reviews to make sure everything is accurate and up to date with your current income, expenses, and goals in mind. Once you have the template built out, it won't take as long in the future when you want to update it. By now, if you were following the directions at the start of this episode, you already should have written down your current income and expenses. A good question to ask at this point is, are you surprised by anything you see, or does anything stick out to you, good or bad? If this is your first time budgeting, chances are there probably will be one or two items that surprise you. Maybe you're spending more than you realized on food or entertainment each month. Maybe your monthly subscriptions to various services are more than you thought they would be. Maybe you're not saving as much as you'd like to each month. If there's anything that does surprise you, make a note of it. Write it down. This will be good information to reference as you adjust your budget. Next, what I like to do and recommend others to do is to take your expenses and break it down into needs and wants. Your needs are the expenses you must incur in order to stay alive, such as housing, food, and electricity. No matter what, these expenses are going to need to be incurred, as the name implies. Your wants, on the other hand, things like entertainment, clothing, etc., can be sacrificed or cut back on if need be. If you do need to adjust your spending, these will be the easiest to adjust. One important thing to mention is that while food may be a need, eating at a restaurant is not a need. So in a worst case scenario, you can always cut back on the number of times you eat out and cook your meals yourself instead to save some money. And savings should be a need, as it is best practice to pay yourself first each month to make sure that you are building your wealth. Now that you know what your needs and wants are, break them down into categories of spending such as rent, utilities, transportation, food, donations, clothing, etc. Take a look at how much you're currently spending each month and determine if you're happy with where things are. If not, figure out where it might be easiest and best to adjust. Play around with the numbers until your expenses equal your income and you're happy with how everything looks. Be realistic with yourself. If you're currently spending $1,000 a month on food because you're eating out a lot, it may be tough to cut that back to $500 to start. So maybe you want to shoot for only $900 the first month, then $850, then $800, and slowly whittle that number down. As I mentioned before, you should pay yourself first. So what does that look like? What is a good and realistic monthly target to shoot for with your savings and investments? If you don't already have an emergency fund, make sure you budget for this as well. Give every dollar a purpose. Everyone's own budget will be slightly different based on your own habits and personal preferences. Once you have this built out, the only thing left to do is just to follow it. If it helps, track your progress weekly to get an update on where you stand on the plan. Are you on track to hit your monthly numbers, or do you need to adjust one category up or down? The more frequently you review this, the better understanding you'll have of your own situation and the more likely you will be to stay on track. Budgeting is not hard once you have the foundation built out. Just get started and get to work. If you're not where you want to be, the only way to fix it is to know where you stand and create a game plan of how to adjust to hit that goal. So thanks so much everybody for tuning in to the Financial Freedom Show with Chase Lawson. I hope you learned something new today and are ready to start applying these concepts into your own life. And as always, I appreciate any feedback you can leave, so make sure to leave a comment and let me know your thoughts or what questions you have. Leave a like or review if you got value out of this. That helps out so much as it helps ensure others are able to organically find this episode. And please subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks so much everyone, and until next time, stay safe and go get 'em.